Should you buy quantum computing stocks? Some of them have surged more than 1,000% in the past year. So in this video, we'll tell you how these businesses work. We'll tell you what Wall Street thinks of the stocks, and we'll speak to an expert investor to get his take. But first, what is quantum computing? Let's start there to kick off this week's Ticker Take.
Okay, John, a lot of people have been asking us for a video about quantum computing.
They definitely have, Caroline, and I understand why, because you've got stocks like D-Wave and Rigetti and Quantum Computing Incorporated that are all up more than 1,000% in the past year. But to understand quantum computing, you have to understand quantum physics. Lola, how's my science knowledge? Well, I know it's not great, you don't have to rub it in, but I get Lola's point. So to help us understand quantum physics and quantum computing, we're joined by the noted Russian scientist, Dr. Yuri Federov. Dr. Fedorov, welcome to Ticker Take.
Thank you.
Dr. Fedorov, quantum computing is modeled after quantum physics. What is quantum physics?
Well, physics studies the movement of matter, and quantum means tiny, so quantum physics studies the tiny particles that influence nature.
Sounds interesting, but how does that impact my life?
John, those tiny particles help to explain how everything works, like magnets, and how the remote control turns on your TV.
Okay, sounds cool, but we already have computers, so why do we need quantum computers?
Well, in physics, quantum particles work very fast, processing many answers at once. But today's computers only work with answering yes and no. But quantum computers can solve yes and no at the same time to solve problems faster.
Got it. So quantum computing is very powerful. But of course, these days we've also got AI tools at our fingertips. Don't those make our computers more powerful?
They do. But your computer is still not as powerful as quantum computer, who can help in discovering new medicines and cracking codes that normal computer can't.
Okay, Dr. Fedorov. Pretty heavy stuff, but we appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a big delight.
Now, while all this sounds exciting, keep in mind that this technology is very expensive to develop. So for the pure play independent companies, we still haven't seen much in the way of profits. And then you've also got the biggest companies in technology that are also trying to ride this wave of quantum computing. So to better understand which companies are best positioned, we wanted to talk to Eric Jackson of EMJ Capital. Eric was one of the first guests on Ticker Take. He's a longtime tech watcher, but also an early investor in quantum computing stocks. Eric, thanks for joining us.
Great to be here.
So it seems like this is a big opportunity, but what are you seeing?
I definitely think so. This sort of reminds me of the dot-com days, John. You know, and one of the funny things about that period now, looking back on it, is that you had companies going public that had no revenue. They basically just had a business plan.
Yeah.
And yet people were so excited about the potential of the internet that they were bidding these up to, you know, levels that nobody could believe at the time. Now, you know, since Facebook came along, we've gotten in the habit of good private companies staying private much, much longer. And when they do go public, they're much bigger. Sort of by fluke, you have a bunch of quantum computing companies that went public a few years ago, a lot of them through SPACing when that was popular. And so they are public today. And yet their valuations sort of had the bottoms drop out of them. And now, just in the last 6 months, 12 months, people have begun to sniff an opportunity with quantum computing. And suddenly these things have been taking off. And there's been tremendous volatility up and down. And so, you know, buyer beware, but there's a reason why people are so excited, is that they think this could be the next multi-billion-dollar opportunity.
Okay, so we want to explore a number of stocks tied to this industry. But before we do this, a friendly reminder, this is not financial advice.
In alphabetical order based on the ticker, stock number 1, Amazon.
Well, Amazon has long been one of the most loved stocks on Wall Street. Eric, we've talked about it a lot over the years. How does it fit into the quantum computing story, though?
Well, you got a bunch of big companies that are working in quantum and then a bunch of smaller companies. Amazon is one of the big ones. They've been working in this area for a while, and kind of similar to their other efforts in chips. Obviously, Amazon Web Services is the biggest cloud service provider out there. And so they want to offer their customers the ability to play around with quantum. So they have a specific hosted quantum cloud service that they offer where you can experiment building your own quantum apps in AWS using, and they're agnostic about whether you're using other people's hardware to do that, and they're experimenting with building their own hardware and their own chips, quantum chips. So whatever happens, however the space moves forward, they hope they come through with some breakthroughs with their own quantum chips, but they want to be the place where you host your quantum apps going forward.
So quantum computers are valuable to governments and big businesses, and if you're an AWS customer, you can maybe tap into that.
Exactly.
And Amazon's looking to tap into that.
For sure.
Stock number 2, BTQ Technologies.
Well, this is one that is not covered by a lot of analysts, but Eric, you've been watching it. You've liked it for a while now. How come?
Well, there's two sides of the coin in the quantum world. There are the people that are building the quantum computers that are going to do different tasks, and then there's who's going to be potentially attacked by a quantum computer, because a big thing in quantum is that you can use something like Shor's algorithm because these quantum computers run so quickly as these qubits increase to potentially hack into anyone's crypto wallet or any RSA level security, which the government uses to lock down its computer code. So if you saw the recent Mission Impossible movie where the algorithm was sort of taking control of the nuclear arsenals around the world, that's potentially what's at risk if these quantum computers do have massive breakthroughs and can crack into that. So obviously the next question is, how do you protect that? How do you protect some ETF, like the biggest Bitcoin ETF now is 70 billion in assets? You know, what if that just disappeared one day? So BTQ is a company that is trying to answer that question. They're building software and hardware solutions that allow for quantum proof of work that would basically lock down any wallet, any legacy hardware that exists out there, legacy server, for protection against an attack from a nefarious state actor from quantum. So they have solutions today. People keep thinking like, oh, is this just years away? Is this 10 or 20 years away? And yet 6 months later, there's some new breakthrough that's announced in quantum. So this is coming much faster than the world thinks. Eventually, there's going to have to be a hard fork in the Bitcoin world to protect Bitcoin from attack. And BTQ wants to be the solution, which is a potentially multi-billion-dollar opportunity for them. Small company, huge opportunity.
Stock number 3, Alphabet.
Okay, in Alphabet, this is a stock that just came up in one of our other videos about the most underrated stocks. We go from a small company, Eric, back to a huge company. What's the Alphabet connection to quantum?
Well, the whole reason why people started getting really excited 6 months ago about quantum computing as an area was really because of an announcement that Alphabet made in December of last year with something called a Willow chip. And it was basically a breakthrough new quantum chip that they developed that was able to do certain mathematical tasks much, much faster than anyone expected. A critic would say, well, they did it in kind of like an artificial way, not a real world way. But the results were the results, and they were just astounding. And so they, along with these, some of the other big tech companies, are trying to develop their own types of quantum chips that they hope are the world class and best in the world. And the Willow chip, which they announced, was pretty astounding. So they've been working in this area for years. This is where the billions of dollars of profits from Google search have been going over the last 10 years to support some of these sort of large moonshot bets. And quantum is definitely one of them.
And would they be trying to do the same thing that Amazon's doing and trying to satisfy other customers with their quantum efforts?
It would be natural for them because they have their own GCP hosted services. So to potentially take their own chips, make that available in that hosted environment, probably making other quantum chips available as well, because you want to be agnostic to what the customers want. But they have the same playbook to follow as Amazon.
Stock number 4, IBM.
Well, everyone knows IBM. On Wall Street, this is not a stock that has a majority of buy ratings today. Eric, tell us about IBM's hopes in quantum computing.
Well, they've been working in this area forever, similar to Google. But a little story about IBM. Like 25 years ago, I worked for a software startup in Toronto that was basically trying to create Siri at the time. And we were so terrified about the competition from IBM because we knew that they had some of the smartest people in speech recognition. They had billions and billions of dollars to throw at this problem. We knew they were throwing it at this problem. And we thought, how can we ever compete? A little 50-person team up in Toronto. The problem with IBM is that even though that same is true now in quantum computing, they have great research results, great aspirations of building their own chips. They think they'll have the most qubits in their quantum computer by 2030, 2033, that sort of time frame. They seem to have a new CEO who is much more focused than some of their past CEOs on kind of delivering results. But the problem is always, can they get out of their own way and actually deliver a product in the market that the market accepts wholeheartedly and loves? So this is sort of like the big company, small company kind of problem. But there's no question, if you're looking just at the strengths, the assets and liabilities of what IBM possesses in the quantum space, amazing people, amazing resources. There's no reason why they can't, have, some of the best quantum products out there. Will they deliver? That's the big question against them.
Stock number 5, IONQ.
Well, this is a company that isn't covered by a huge number of analysts on Wall Street, but a majority, Eric, are positive on the IONQ story. What is the IONQ story?
Well, in the small pool of companies that we're going to talk about today, this is the biggest. So this one has a $10 billion market cap, which is nothing to sneeze at in the quantum world. They've also been generating revenue amongst the smaller players the longest, and they have the most revenue to show for it. Still microscopic compared to a lot of companies, and the skeptics on the quantum space will say that's your revenue stream, that's your model of an amazing kind of commercialization of these efforts. But they are a very interesting company in a lot of ways. They're going about creating their own quantum computer by trapping ions. That's hence the name IONQ. And it's all of these companies have a different way of kind of trying to solve this sort of scaling up of qubit problems. Trapping ions is just one way. But what's really interesting to me, John, is that they have a director who's actually the head of sales for Dell Computer on the board. His name is Bill Scannell. And in March of this year, right after there was sort of like the quantum hype because of that Willow chip announcement, and then there was Jensen made a comment, oh no, I think this is still like 20 years away. And
the CEO of NVIDIA, who implied that maybe quantum had a few more years before it would be the real deal.
So all these stocks that had gone up a tremendous amount in December crashed in like January and February. But then this director for IONQ, Bill Scannell, bought $2 million worth of IONQ stock in early March of this year. So dug into his own pocket. It wasn't, it wasn't executive comp. Like, it was his choice. And usually when any executive or insider does this, it's a good sign that he knows that this company is the real deal and has lots of runway ahead of it. So I think for that reason, it's definitely one that you should consider amongst a basket of these smaller names.
Stock number 6, Microsoft.
Well, Microsoft, when you look at the analyst views, is one that Wall Street has really fallen in love with over the last 5 or 10 years. They've got a lot going on. What's going on with quantum with Microsoft?
A lot, actually. So they are similar to Amazon and Google in the sense that obviously they've got their Azure cloud services, and so they want to be able to offer quantum services to all their customers. But they're also building their own chips, just like those other big guys. And what's kind of neat is that they made this announcement just a few weeks ago where they basically said that they came up with their own topological element, a new state of matter, John, to create their quantum chips with, that they said will reduce the error rates and be much better performing and all this kind of stuff. I'm not really accustomed to coming across these like press releases where we came up with a new element. So they call it...
They can afford to have scientists on their staff to do that kind of stuff, I guess?
So they call it Majorana. It's still not, available yet, but, they have their research papers, very excited about it. The other place that they're playing also is in the security space. So they have a big investment already at Microsoft in regular software security, but you can bet that they will be wanting to kind of step forward and play a role in the whole post-quantum cryptography world, similar to BTQ, what I talked about before.
For the defense, because quantum might be able to crack codes in a way.
Exactly. Yeah. So they want to be the helpful partner to all, legacy government, financial institutions, healthcare providers, all the rest.
Stock number 7, D-Wave Quantum.
Well, like IONQ, which we talked about earlier, not a lot of analysts who are covering the company yet, but most of them are on board with the story. What is the story?
They're another smaller one. They're probably second largest after IONQ. They've probably been the hottest quantum stock in 2025 so far because they've really demonstrated some strong financial results. And again, a critic would say, what financial results? Because these are still microscopic revenues, but D-Wave has had some really interesting customer announcements. They again go at quantum in a different way. They do something called quantum annealing, which is different than a photonic approach or a trapped ion approach. It means that they are trying to solve quantum problems that are a little bit more limited in nature. So I'll give you for instance. So if you're a logistics company and you're trying to run different scenarios, like not just a few, but like hundreds, thousands of possible scenarios of how to plan, how to plan your logistics, department. The D-Wave approach and the annealing quantum approach that they're providing, it is a very efficient way to do that. They do other work scheduling types of problems. They're not doing general purpose though, problems. And so some would say that limits it. On the other hand, it makes their approach probably faster to commercialize. And so,
because it's like a practical solution
yes,
that if you can't solve it on your own, that would
right,
be appealing.
Yeah, in sort of like a very sort of a certain scope of problems. And so they're having success now. They're delivering. You should pay attention to them. But just keep in mind they're going at it a different way than some of these other companies.
Stock number 8, Quantum Computing Inc.
Okay, well, Eric, like a lot of the standalone quantum plays that we've talked about, still limited coverage on Wall Street. They have a name,
right,
obviously covers a lot of ground.
And a ticker.
And a ticker.
QBT.
There you go. So early advantage there. What kind of advantages does this company potentially have, do you think?
They're taking the photonic approach, which is different, which means that their approach means that their computers only have to be at room temperature. A lot of these companies, when they build these massive quantum computers, and where they're trying to up the qubits, they have to be icy cold, freezing situations, data centers where they're housed, because that reduces the error rate. Not so with this approach. Again, there's trade-offs with that. Some would say, they're not as powerful and so forth. This particular company is trying to go after, again, a little bit more a limited scope of problems. They're trying to make it more business oriented, like if you're scheduling your team, or for example, like for the coming week, that's a type of problem that our quantum computer can solve. So they're also investing in their own hardware. They're building a foundry in Arizona in addition to their software, but they're the smallest. They're one of the smaller names. There's maybe more skepticism about them long term. They haven't really delivered anything yet. So high risk, high reward.
And stock number 9, Rigetti Computing.
Well, like a lot of the stocks we've talked about today, Eric, that are pure plays in cloud computing, still not a lot of coverage on Wall Street, but for those analysts who cover it, they do like it. What is there to like about Rigetti?
They're taking an approach that is going to take longer to commercialize, but it's a bigger potential commercial opportunity for them. It's an approach that's similar to IBM, similar to Google. It's something called a gate-based approach for building a quantum computer using superconducting. It's sound. It has some great technical people behind it. It's on the smaller end of all the smaller basket of stocks that we've talked about. It's about a $3.5 billion market cap today, but that's because the commercialization has been slower with it. But I do like it. I do like a lot of the backers behind it. And it, if you're patient, this thing could pay off in dividends over a multi-year time period.
All right, lots to chew on there. Eric, great to get your perspective. Thanks so much.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, that's our deep dive on quantum computing stocks.
Our thanks to Eric Jackson for his insight. You can learn more about Eric in our description.
And how about that Dr. Yuri Federov?
A true genius, if you ask me. If you have thoughts on today's video, let us know in the comments.
Absolutely, and be sure to check out what we're doing across all of social media and sign up for our free investing newsletter. It's weekly, and we've got a link in the description.
And if you've been enjoying our merch, thank you so much. A few items have sold out, but we will be restocking the shelves.
And thank you for subscribing. If you haven't, hit that subscribe button so that you can support Ticker Take, but also, of course, never miss any of our upcoming weekly investing videos. See you next time.
1, 2, ow. Oof.
Voila. Will.
Will.
Big fan.